you, everybody, for coming to the College Football Betting with Aaron Torres YouTube channel. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, click that subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. It helps our audience grow. I appreciate it more than you know, as we're talking college football on this channel year-round. Appreciate your support. Click that subscribe button. College football over-under win total prediction shows roll on. I've told you a million times, but in addition to the Aaron Torres pod, we do a college football betting show where we, during the season, preview all of the big games. But right now, here in July and August, we are previewing all of the major teams, what you need to know, and giving our over-under win total prediction. At this point, we have already done virtually all of the SEC, Texas, Oklahoma, Bama, Georgia, Tennessee, on and on. In the Big Ten, we have done both Penn State and Michigan. Today, it is the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Fascinating team. Year 3 for Matt Rhule. Year 2 for Dylan Raiola. Let's go ahead and dive in. And I will note, by the way, we are recording this in early August. So if you find us in mid-August, late August, whatever, just know that we are recording here in early August in case something crazy happens in camp, whatever. As far as Nebraska is concerned, fascinating team, fascinating program, coming off of a fascinating year, right? So last year, of course, was Matt Rhule's year 2 for Matt Rhule, coming off of a 5-7 season where they started 5-3, proceeded to lose 4 straight, not get bowl eligible. Well, last year, you feel like things are finally different. You destroy Colorado in week 2. You end up losing to Illinois on a Friday night in overtime. Turns out Illinois is better. You beat Rutgers. You beat Purdue. You get to 5-1. You say, okay, this is finally the year. We're going to a bowl. We're winning 8-9 games. Maybe we're even a fringe college football playoff contender. Then, unfortunately, you go play Indiana. Turns out Indiana was good, but you get boat raced. Lose to Ohio State. And then, where it started to get a little bit sketchy, you lose to UCLA at home to start September, okay? Or start November, excuse me. That is when the offensive coordinator change is made. Dana Holgorsen comes in. You proceed to lose to USC. You were 5-1. You're now 5-5. But to the credit of Nebraska, they were able to beat Wisconsin, get bowl eligible. They go to that bowl game. They beat the Boston College Eagles. And now I'll say this, a lot of enthusiasm for this program. And I give credit for Matt Rhule. He's got a franchise quarterback in Dylan Raiola. I think he smartly used the portal to upgrade the talent around him. So let's go ahead and dive into what to expect this year. Let's start on offense. And, it's not only that it starts with Dylan Raiola, but it starts with Dylan Raiola and his pseudo-new offensive coordinator. Dana Holgorsen, as I mentioned, middle of the season, listen, there's no other way to put it, is middle of the season, Dylan Raiola is getting the crap kicked out of him, okay? And I'm not saying that it wasn't any of his fault. But at the same time, it was clear that the offense wasn't working. They bring in Holgorsen as kind of a consultant. And from there, they install him as the full-time offensive coordinator. You look at the raw statistics of the offense, 23 points per game, 103rd nationally, 94th in total offense, 96th in rushing offense, and the passing offense was a little bit better. You look at those stats, you say, oh, Nebraska stunk. The bottom line is, though, that Dylan Raiola, once Dana Holgorsen took over, I thought he was much better. On the season, you can see those stats, 67% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. But the counter to that, true freshman, threw for the most yards ever for a freshman in program history. And he also led all freshmen in completion percentage as far as freshmen are concerned with completion percentage. That's what that means. But I think the important part was once Holgorsen took over, final 3 games, completed 72% of his passes, just 1 interception. So he got more confident, he got more comfortable, and now it is about building around him from there. Couple interesting notes on offense. You did lose your leading rusher, Dante Dowdell, to Kentucky. Why is that noteworthy? That was the guy, if you remember, in whatever it was, December, January, Matt Rhule goes to the podium and he basically talks about, the portal now, guys are going into the portal with signed contracts on the other side. And that's not a direct quote, but I'm paraphrasing. Well, Dante Dowdell was that guy. Obviously, I think Matt Rhule was a little frustrated with losing him. Doesn't change the fact that with Emmett Johnson back, they should be able to run the ball. And then again, I mentioned that Matt Rhule, to his credit, I think smartly has kind of built around Dylan Raiola. Okay. Wide receiver room, Dane Key, transfer from Kentucky. This guy was one of the highest rated recruits that Kentucky ever signed. And in a system that certainly doesn't favor the passing game and offense, he was actually pretty good. 47 catches a year ago, 2 touchdowns. That doesn't sound good. Go look at Kentucky's offensive stats. They were 16th in the SEC in passing out of 16 teams, so don't blame him. But he did have, as a true freshman, 6 touchdown grabs in 2022, 6 touchdown grabs in 2023. And basically, it just got to the point where he said, I need to go to a place where they actually, I don't want to say this like this, but they kind of know what they're doing in the pass game. But he leaves Kentucky as the 5th all-time receiver in school history, and he did it in only 3 years. And that was, by the way, 3 different offensive coordinators, 3 different quarterbacks. So to me, that feels like it's worth noting. In addition to him, you also bring back, on top of that, Ja'Cory Barney, 55 catches and 447 yards a year ago. Naziah Hunter transfers in alongside Dane Key from Cal. He had 40 catches and 5 touchdowns a year ago. And I think the other significant upgrade is along the offensive line. Elijah Pritchett comes in to play 1 tackle, started 11 games last year at Alabama, played in 29 games at Alabama. And then you see it on the screen. Rocco Spindler played 40 games at Notre Dame, 23 starts, 13 starts last year at Notre Dame, including, oh, by the way, you may have heard they played for a national championship. So you talk about a guy that has experience, has big game experience. It doesn't get much bigger than playing for a national championship. Rocco Spindler and Elijah Pritchett come in along the offensive line. Defensively, 2 things can be true. Nebraska was super elite last year. They lose a lot and have a new coordinator. Okay, so in terms of what they lost, or in terms of what they did last year, top 20 nationally in scoring defense, allowed less than 20 points per game. Top 10 total defense, top, reason. Let me put it this way. They were very good in certain elements, not so good in others. I think I said top 10. That is just not accurate at all. I apologize if my notes got screwed up. They were good defensively, okay? They were not elite. And what's interesting is Tony White, the defensive coordinator, leaves for Florida State. And what's interesting is they lose a lot of people with them. Jamari Butler leaves with him. He goes. James Williams leaves with him. He goes. John Butler has now come in. To replace Tony White. So we'll see what the defense looks like from there. But it's not as though they don't have talent. And again, I think that's an important part with this team is they've done a good job developing. They've done a good job of finding guys in the portal. So who do they have? Well, here's the important name. Williams Nwaneri is a former 5-star player in the class of 2024. Played at Missouri last year, didn't really get a lot of run, but he comes in. I think the staff is really excited about him. Elijah Judy, also back along the defensive line, 13 tackles, 2 TFLs. Riley Van Poppel. For the baseball fans out there, that is Todd Van Poppel's son. That's an old school baseball reference. Todd Van Poppel, the number 2 pick in the 1990 MLB draft. Who was drafted ahead of him? Chipper Jones, that's who. No big deal. Anyway, bring it up because Riley Van Poppel is back as well. The linebacker crew, a lot of talent there. As you can see, Marcus Watson Trent, he's a guy that, Matt Rhule has really raved about. Transfers in from Georgia Southern, was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year, 118 tackles, 7.5 TFLs. And in addition to him, you also have some nice returnees alongside him. Vincent Shavers Jr., 25 tackles, 2.5 TFLs. Javen Wright, 34 tackles, 1.5 TFLs. I think another intriguing name at linebacker, Dasan McCullough. This is a player that was a freshman All-American at Indiana a few years ago, goes to Oklahoma, deals with some injuries, looking for a fresh start at Nebraska. And then the secondary, probably where the strength is. Malcolm Harzog, as you can see, was honorable mention, all Big 12, 45 tackles, 4 INTs. Zaire Wright, of course, transfers in from USC a year ago, played in all 13 games, 2 INTs, 1 sack, 6 PBUs. So a lot of depth and experience in the secondary and just a lot of talent across the board, even if it is new with the coordinator change. Beyond that, let's go ahead and look at the Nebraska schedule. A lot of interesting elements to this one. Okay, so first of all, as far as the schedule is concerned, they open. Interesting one, I guess is the best way to put it. Week 1, they play that first Thursday night at Arrowhead Stadium against Cincinnati. So you kind of play a Power 5 team. I mean, you do play a Power 4 team, excuse me. But, kind of a team that's probably on the back end that you probably should feel pretty good about. You then from there have 2 very manageable games. And I think what's interesting, that Big Ten opener against Michigan. Remember about that Big Ten opener. Sharon Moore will not be coaching in that game. Sharon Moore is suspended for a couple games. He's actually coaching in week 2 against Oklahoma. That's his alma mater. He wanted to coach at that game. So the suspension starts after that. And then it includes the Michigan-Nebraska game in week 4, which is also your Big Ten opener. From there, you get a bye and a very manageable stretch from there. Michigan State at home, at Maryland, at Minnesota. I'll say this, Minnesota seems to always play people a little bit tough. Also, the quirk with that one is that is a Friday night game. So Fox obviously has that Friday night game. You then play Northwestern. You get USC at home in November. I think that's kind of noteworthy, is the fact that you're playing USC, Lincoln Riley, a team that wants to pass the ball in probably not great weather in November. Then you go to UCLA before your second bye of the year. You close with Penn State. You close with Iowa. What stands out to me, let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row from the first week of October until basically Thanksgiving-ish time frame when you finally get that bye prior to Penn State. So that is the schedule. Let's go ahead and talk the over-under win total for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. It's 7.5 at the DraftKings Sportsbook. I got to be real. I kind of like the over in this schedule. Let me explain why. So first of all, listen, you did lose a lot on defense, but the defense has not been the issue. The offense, I think, is a couple things. One, I just think the offense is going to be better. You have an offseason with Dana Holgorsen. You have an offseason to get better. You have an offseason to get used to that system. And you have an offseason to put in a system that is more beneficial for Dylan Raiola. The O-line should be better. The receiver room should be better. I don't worry about the defense. And there are a couple other variables here. One, I actually think all things considered, the schedule is kind of manageable. You get Michigan in a game without their head coach. You get USC, as I said, at home in November in Lincoln. So Lincoln Riley coming to Lincoln. But the bottom line is you get, USC at a game where the weather conditions probably aren't going to be great. The UCLA game, you're probably, frankly, going to have more fans at the Rose Bowl than UCLA does. Fun fact, I have been to a Nebraska-UCLA game at the Rose Bowl in probably 2012. Correct me, Nebraska fans. There were probably 40,000 Nebraska fans there. It's like 10,000, whatever. You get the point. They're going to have a lot of fans there. Then you close. Listen, Penn State and Iowa are tough. You at least get Penn State off of a bye. Worth noting that Penn State in the back half of their schedule was tough. They have at Ohio State, Indiana. So it's not like they're going to be coming in, totally rested. And so you look at the schedule, but then also look at who's not on the schedule. I think this is important. No Ohio State, no Oregon, no Illinois, which many believe is a college football playoff contender. I'll say this. Indiana, one, put a hurting pretty good on Nebraska last year. I think Indiana is going to be good again this year. And so no Indiana made the playoff last year. No Ohio State, no Oregon. So you had 4 Big Ten playoff teams last year. You avoid 3 of them. And then on top of it, you get USC at home. You get Michigan without Sharon Moore. I just really like the schedule. So to go back to the over-under win total, I actually do like the over of 7.5. You add in all the variables with 2 other things. One, year 3 Matt Rhule is officially a thing. Well, it will definitely officially be a thing if he has the season that I think that we all think he is going to this year. Remember, this is a guy, 2 previous head coaching stops, year 3 at Temple, improves from 6-6 to 10-4. Year 3 at Baylor improves from 7-6 to 11-3. My guess is this is probably his last year 3 as a college football head coach. I don't think he's going anywhere after Nebraska. And so can the program make the leap? I think it's also interesting. We're recording here as camps open. He is gushing about this team. I mean, he's talking about how much the team likes to practice. I was right before we started recording here reading an article where he said that basically he tried to end practice and Dylan Raiola was like, I want a couple more reps. The entire team was like, I want a couple more reps. That is the kind of team you want around. And he said, I was very intentional about the type of people I brought in, the type of players I brought in. I like that over of 7.5. I don't quite know if they're really a playoff contender. I think you probably got to get to 10 wins with that schedule. It will not be easy, but I like them. And I think they're going to go over the 7.5. All right, I think that's it for this episode of College Football Betting with Aaron Torres. This is the deal here. If you're not subscribed, if you're sticking with me on YouTube, you got to subscribe because we're going to have plenty of Nebraska coverage all year long, plenty of college football coverage. Make sure that you are subscribed. You can also find us on Apple and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating and review. But the ultimate thing is here, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. We appreciate your support. Also, again, Apple and Spotify. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to get out of here. We're going to come back next episode. I guess we should probably talk the Ohio State Buckeyes, right? Forget how the last season ended. I think it worked out pretty well for Ryan Day and co. Ohio State up next. Make sure to subscribe. We appreciate your support. We'll see y'all again soon.